you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a speaker, or a coach, and although you've come a long way, it's time for you to take it to the next level. We've got you. This is the Author to Authority podcast. We'll help you use authority and influencer marketing to build your business stronger and faster by publishing a book. You'll hear from guests that are thought leaders in sales, marketing, networking, communication, social media, promotion, and business leadership. Let's do it. This is the Author to Authority podcast. And now your host, the extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson-Pinder.
Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And if you have ever wondered if there is powerful wording that you can use to turn any discovery call into a high-ticket sales call, well, you do not want to miss 1 minute of today's episode of the Author to Authority podcast. I am so happy to welcome Dean Isaacs to the show. When he launched his consulting firm in a new city where he had no contacts or network, he was able to go from zero sales to high-figure sales in 14 months. And of course, you know, when something like that happens, people started asking him how he did it. His secret was merging marketing and sales into a simple, cohesive approach. Delicious word, cohesive. We like those delicious words on the Author to Authority podcast. That is aligned with how his ideal clients buy. He calls this approach eliminating the friction effect. He originates from the UK and has spent almost 2 decades helping B2B experts and consultants scale their businesses by working with their ideal clients. Clients who buy faster, spend more, truly value your services, and tell their friends. And that is the exact kind of clients that you want. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Thanks, Kim. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So, Dean, I'm just going to ask you the obvious question because, you know, when someone makes a claim like I did, people are like, I'm going to have to wait and see. But are there words that you can use that, you know, change the trajectory of a sales call?
There really are. I think there are words, but there are also questions that change the direction of the call. I think when I work with 2 groups, I work with corporate clients. So I'm working with their sales and marketing teams. I tend to be leading those teams, helping them with strategy. But I think for your audience, I'm guessing they're more like us, right? They're service providers, trusted advisors, coaches, and consultants. So maybe I'll focus my comments around that because I think it's more aligned with your audience. So with that audience,
I agree.
Okay, excellent. So with that audience, we bust our butts trying to get a lead, right? An opportunity, an introduction, some opportunity to talk to somebody that might buy our stuff. And what happens is we show up and we just start talking, right? The first thing we want to do is show them how brilliant we are and all of our experience and expertise. And that's the biggest cardinal error you can make. So the first thing you can do is ask insightful questions. So more typical questions, you know, what's your problem? You know, what have you tried to do to solve this? Do you have a budget? Are you a decision maker? All of those generic sales questions put you in that generic sales bucket, right? But as a true expert in this piece of the business or the world that you help solve for problems for, define those top 3 really insightful questions that get your prospect to think differently about their problem. So that's the first place to start, because asking insightful questions actually sets yourself up as an expert more than you telling them how great you are and how many times you've done a thing for other clients.
You know, when you said that, it reminds me of different things that I've heard over the years. You know, I can't remember which family member it was, but, you know, one of my family members used to look at me and said, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, Kim, right. Implying that I talk too much, which I have to admit, as a young person and into my adulthood, even into my entrepreneurial career, I did talk too much. But one thing you said there caught my attention, and that was asking the different types of questions. Because when you stand out right? And how do you stand out? You do things differently than everybody else does. A typical salesperson talks. But a true expert authority asks questions and listens.
Yeah.
And that is a hard skill. I mean, even sometimes on the podcast, I've got these amazing experts like you on the show. And yes, now I am talking. But, you start talking and then my brain starts going and I'm thinking, I got all these things to say, right?
Yeah.
But when you learn how to just zip the lip, and I think one of the keys too is truly listening, like not just hearing the words, but listening to understand, not listening to reply. And that was something that when I learned it totally changed how I did everything. When I listened to understand instead of listen to reply.
Yeah, which is why I said write down 3 insightful questions, because then if you've already got the questions lined up, you don't have to think about the next question. You're not thinking about the next question when you should be listening and responding to that comment. And there are always core questions that you can ask that set you up as the expert, as I said, get the prospect to think differently about their problem, and that becomes second nature. And what it does is it stimulates a conversation.
Yes.
And that's where we're headed. I'm a really big believer. You've heard of consultative selling and spin selling and all of these different techniques and approaches. And there's value in some of them. But to me, I really like the approach of collaborative selling, which really just means collaboration, quite honestly. So instead of me selling across the desk or asking a difficult sales question so you can answer it and I can close the business. No, I want to virtually step around and sit on the same side of the desk as you, really be empathetic, and have a conversation, a collaboration, and educate along the way. But educating during the sales process isn't the same as consulting during the sales process, which often happens, is people just want to give away all their good advice and ideas, which is fine. But the truth is that advice doesn't really get any traction with the prospect. They may think, wow, Kim's smart, she understands this thing, but they don't take action on the advice you give them. That's actually why they need to pay you to move the process forward. So it's collaboration and conversation. That's the goal.
I think we need to explore this a bit deeper, Dean, because, I've never heard it described that way before, but we need to dive deeper into, that value that you share, because what I'm hearing you saying is that you can educate and give all the answers, but it's the wrong way to do it. So can you go a little deeper into that? Like, I want to hear more about, how do you share value in a collaborative way as opposed to the consultative way, which just tells people what to do. That is fascinating me.
Yeah. So the consultative sales approach really is ask some insightful questions, which I like, obviously, share some wisdom, consult a little bit, but really what it is, it's about positioning the prospect in a way that you can ask the business. That's really the goal. That's the goal. The goal with a collaborative approach is it's more of a team education process. It takes longer to get from that first call to whatever the outcome is. The outcome may be, Kim, I love you, you're awesome, but we're not a fit, right? I've said that to prospects before, and prospects have said that to me, and that's fine. And it may even take a little longer to get there, but what happens is you build a rapport and a relationship with that human, that person, whether they buy from you or not. And that leads to what? Recommendations, referrals, connection building, goodwill in the marketplace. But if you do land them as a client, you're already so much further ahead in the relationship. You're going to be more impactful. So just throwing out random ideas isn't going to help. You may think it's going to do 2 things. You think it's going to help demonstrate your expertise, which it may to a point, and you may think it's also going to help the client move forward. The truth is that it's much like buying e-courses, right? 90% of all the e-courses purchased are never completed. Over 50% of them are never even started. So people spend money on this stuff and never take action because we need somebody to guide us in the how. I could say, go do these things. These are just what things, right? What you should do. But unless you understand the how, you're never going to take action or you're going to get stuck. That's why they hire you, is to walk through the how, the execution, not just the what. So the collaborative process moves them from what to how, and you're part of that equation. It's a natural, you never have to close. Buying just becomes a natural extension of the conversations that you've had with your prospect.
You kind of describe a lot of what I call them sales calls, but really a lot of my calls are like that. It's the natural thing for us after we've talked to work together. And it's usually very obvious to the both of us that that's the next step. Like I don't have to, push or any of that kind of stuff. And if the client's not ready, they tell me.
Totally.
And my response is, okay.
Yeah. I did a webinar a couple of weeks ago for business consultants and fractional executives, people that are fractional CFOs, CMOs, pick your acronym, on how to grow their fractional business in 2024. Mm-hmm. I've been a fractional for over a decade. I'm an 11-time fractional. I've been doing it a long, long time. And I found myself coaching other fractions. They're like, well, how did you do this thing? I want to be a fractional. I don't know how to do it. So I started coaching people one-on-one. Now I've launched a mastermind for a group model. But I did a webinar, and it was just an educational webinar, just to share some of the things that are working this year to help fractionals launch and grow their business. And I mentioned the fractional launchpad, which is the mastermind, throughout the thing, not as a sales pitch, but just like to give them context. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I said, look, if anybody wants to hop on a call, there's 3 reasons you want to hop on the call, or 3 things that we might achieve on the call. One is I might be able to just answer a question for you right then, and you're off and running. Awesome. 2, maybe I can make an introduction or a connection for you, and that helps your business. Sweet. Or 3, maybe we figure out this. I can help you. We can work together, and that's okay too. And so when you set that tone, people get on a call knowing that I'm not going to pitch them, because I'd never say hard push anybody, because I don't want somebody to buy something they're not ready to buy. But I genuinely want to be of value.
Yeah.
And so I got so many people raise their hand to hop on a call, and most of them I gave them some great advice, and it was actionable, so they could actually understand not the what, but also the how to execute. Some are signing up for the program, some I made introductions to, and it's all good. It's all good. So that's the sort of approach. It's a collaborative approach to the process. And I think that some of us, like yourself, do it intuitively, but I encourage you to formulate it, right? Formalize it, document it, put your process down, write down the questions you ask, the flow of the sales call or the discovery call or the roadmap call, whatever you want to call it. That way you're consistent, and you'll find you get far more consistent results. And then you can improve on the things that didn't work. You asked a question that didn't quite land, or you didn't get to that. Sometimes you do have to ask the person, are you ready to move forward? Right? That's okay.
Yeah.
But if you don't write it down, if it's not part of your process, it's really easy to just let that slide because it feels a little awkward, right? So formalize that process, write it down.
We got to take a quick ad break, but we're definitely going to come back and we're going to unpack this. But just before we do, it's funny. I found sometimes it hard to ask for the sale, but one thing I have found that's easy to do is I just say to the person, how do you want to proceed from here?
Yeah.
And then I let them tell me.
Love it. Yeah, I actually use a similar question. Where do we go from here is what I sometimes ask. Same thing. Yeah. They'll tell you. They'll tell you. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we're going to take a quick ad break. If you're looking for resources on how to write a book that converts readers into client and scales your business, I have a free resource for you, and we will be right back. Writing and publishing a book that converts readers into client and scales your business is hard, but it doesn't have to be. Get my free checklist at bit.ly/create and scale that will show you what you need to do to have your book become a well-converting lead generating tool. Welcome back, Dean. I am just so enjoying this conversation. I think I want to go a little bit deeper because, one of the things, you talked about knowing what to do, but not necessarily how to do it. And one of the things that I found very frustrating for many years in my entrepreneurial journey was people telling me what to do, but not how to do it. And the only way they would tell me how to do it was if I paid them significant amounts of money. And one of the things that I determined on when I was deciding to do this podcast was that we'd always give very actionable how-to tips. So not just what, but how. So when you were talking, one of the things that came to mind is, how do you figure out those deeper questions, those things that, are going to make you seem like the expert? Because it's great to say, okay, you've got to come up with these questions. Mm-hmm. But, if you're not a writer, or if you're not kind of good with words, how do you figure out what are the better questions to ask?
Yeah, I love this question. And on the surface, it seems really difficult, but I'm going to let you into a secret. It's not. If you sat down with a new client, regardless of what your profession is, if you're a writer, if you're a marketer, if you're a coach, I don't care what it is. If you sit down with your client for that first kickoff call, mm-hmm. What do you ask them? What do you ask them to really understand where they're at, to really understand their mindset, their problem, their goals and their dreams? You've already probably touched on that during the discovery process, right? And all of that good stuff. But when they're a client, you get deep, right? You get right into it. Those are the questions you ask. Oh. Treat them like a client before they ever pay. Let them experience being a client without ever having to pay. I'm not saying give them everything, right? You're not going to overwhelm them on a sales call. But if you have your list of questions, your discovery questions, your audit questions, your interview, whatever you call them, go through that list. Well, first of all, if you're a professional at your chosen trade and you don't have that stuff written down, write it down. Have a client onboarding process, a client kickoff process, write it down. So there's another how, right? Go do that. So once you've done that, go through the list and pick out 2 or 3. You'll know them. Those questions will jump right out at you. One of the questions I ask my clients, corporate clients, is, where are you going with the business? What's your vision for the business 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road? And the reason I want to know that is, are they growing this thing quickly to sell it? Do they want to bring in private equity funds? Do they want to build it and hand it off to the kids? Is this just a lifestyle business? I get them thinking about that during my early discovery, because it obviously helps me understand where they're at. But it gets them thinking about their business differently. Especially if they're newer in business, they're not thinking about exit. So it's changing the way they think about their business, because all of my sales and marketing and strategy work has to align with where they're going. So I could come in and say, I can build a marketing plan for you and this and that. And I don't talk about any of that stuff. They don't care about that stuff. They care about what? Where they want to go. So I ask that kind of question. So go through your discovery, pull out 2 or 3 questions, use those in your sales calls.
Wow, you unpacked a lot there. One of the things you said was, having an onboarding system. And last summer, it was one of those situations where I knew what to do. I even knew a fair amount of the how, but what I found was that I was kind of like stuck like the forest in the trees. I was too deep into my own business. I mean, I could see it in other people's businesses, but right. I was way too deep into my own business. And so I worked with some specialists, and one gentleman interviewed some of my clients. And the one thing, I knew it, I didn't really think about it, but one thing that surprised me was one of the things that they found really important, and one of the reasons why they worked with me was because I had a complete system for, ghostwriting, editing, and producing their books. I have project management software, I have a project manager, we have a system. When you log in for the first time, you see all the steps listed and we walk you through the steps. And I was surprised. That was not what I was expecting them to say. But one of the things is when they talk to people and I get referrals from them, they tell them, listen, Kim's got a whole system. All you got to do is follow the system. And I didn't realize just how important that was. It was something I had done many years ago. And of course, we developed the system and, we change it as needed as the company evolves and progresses and stuff like that. But I didn't realize until, the specialist I was working with talked with my clients about just how important it is and how professional See, because that was one of the words. Like, Kim is a true professional. She has a system. And so I think, like, we're getting off topic of the discovery call, but I think when you have that system in place and you can show people the system, I think that's one of the ways that immediately increases your authority, your professionalism, makes you seem like the expert.
I think we're 100% on topic, Kim. I really do. Because there are two things that you said there that I don't think people do intentionally. One is communicating what it's like to work with you. What's the journey like? What's the process like? If I've never written a book, I don't know. Do I have to sit down and write 1,000 words a day? What do I need to do? I don't know. I don't know how to proof. I don't know how to edit. I don't know. So sharing that you have a process and framing up what those general steps are takes away the fear, right? And the lack of knowing what's going to happen. So that's number one. The other is, if I've never hired an author, I don't know how to buy author services.
Yeah.
Right. So you're helping them buy your service with confidence versus the person that says, oh, I'll sit down, I'll interview you, I'll write it. It'll take a couple of months. It'll be awesome. Trust me. That versus we have a clearly defined process. Here are the steps you'll go through. Here's the time that we expect you'll need to dedicate. Very different experience, right?
Yeah.
So it allows you, we talked about high ticket sales. That will increase your average deal size exponentially by having that and communicating that at the right time.
So I'm on the right track because I do that all the time. I share.
You're doing
these calls. I share the process, right? Because here's the thing. Almost every discovery call goes about the same way. So I ask the person to introduce themselves, tell me a little about themselves. We talk for a little bit. And then, I graduate the subject to their book. We start talking about their book. I give them some hints, some tips, some practical things. And, I'll just say to them, I said, most times at this point, people just want to know, what's the process like? So I kind of guide the conversation and they'll look at me and they're like, yeah, I want to know what okay, so let's go through them. And then I discuss them with the process, right? And they're like, oh, that's really cool. And then I look at them, and I'm guiding this whole thing, and I look at them and I go, I bet you I know what the next two questions you have are. And they look at me, right? I said, you're curious about how much this costs and how long is it going to take to produce a book? And they look at me and they go, yeah, I know, because I've done this a few times, right? But I'm guiding the conversation, but I just keep it very conversational. But because I'm guiding the conversation, I'm not letting it go out, into all these different places. And because generally, the three things people want to know is, what is the process? How much does it cost? And how much time does it take? Right. I just guide them through those three in the call. Yep.
What you're doing is you're avoiding these objections that come up. And an objection is a sales term, right? An objection is just a reason in the buyer's mind why they can't buy. That's all it is. Yeah. And usually it's because they've not been informed or educated about that particular topic. So you're avoiding all of these unnecessary objections by sharing the information. You're anticipating their needs, and by doing that, you're elevating yourself as an expert. It goes back to the beginning of what we talked about. Those are insightful questions or insightful pieces of information that you're providing before they have to ask, elevates you as an expert.
Well, yeah, because nobody wants to ask how much it costs. Like, they have no problem asking how long it's going to take. But, it gets awkward when you have to ask how much this thing's going to cost you, right?
Right.
And so I take that off the table, right? And I'm just like, I bet I know the next question you have, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you a little nugget. Another what you can do opportunity is create a little video, a 30-second video, explaining what you're going to cover in the call, and if there's anything you want them to think about coming into the call, and send that as part of your reminder sequence for the call. So they're even more informed coming in, knowing what. So they come into the call thinking, well, Kim's nice. I've met her. Just saw her online, but I'm still not sure where this call's going. Remove even that level of fear. Collaborate even more. And it can be that sort of standard video everybody gets. Hey, looking forward to seeing you next week, whatever, right? It doesn't have to be personalized, though you could. Mm-hmm. And say, just so you know what we're going to cover in our call tomorrow, we're going to cover these three things. I'd love you to be thinking about X, Y, and Z as we come into the call, so you can get the most out of our time together. they're already energetic coming into the call. They're already one more point of contact with you. So you just take that your game even further down the road.
Love it, love it, love it. We are going to switch gears here. We didn't get a chance to get to your story. So, Dean, I think we'll be having you back another day. But I want to make sure that I ask you the question that I ask every person who is not an author that comes on the show. And that is, if you were to write a book to build your business, what would you write about?
I love this question. And it's something that's actually in the early stages. So the book is on how business, as corporate executives, consultants, and fractionals can grow their business with fractional services by only working with a few clients, a few hours a week, and really take back control of their business life, their personal life, and their income.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. You know, you talk about how you've been in this a long time. You were probably a fractional person before they even came up with the word fractional.
Yeah. My first fractional gig was 2000, and I think it was 2008. 2008, which was way before the term fractional became popular. So yeah, I've been doing it a while.
So what at this point would you say is the hardest part for you? Because obviously you've got a good idea about what you want to write about, but kind of where are you in the process, and you know, what's kind of stopping you? Because there's always something that kind of keeps you from, you know, really completing or getting the book really started. Yeah.
I think like many people, it's probably a prioritizing thing more than anything else. And also and you alluded to it in your business too, being so close to your own stuff, it's hard to kind of get it done. So I decided about 4 months ago to prioritize launching the group training mastermind program for fractionals versus the book, because then the book would have just been a reason for me to push the launch of the program further out. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna launch the program. The book will come. It's all good. And actually going through building out the program it's helped me sort of formulate a lot of the things I want to put into the book. But I'm still a ways off, Kim. I'm not there yet.
You know, it's funny. I have found two things. You know, when one of two things, either your book helps you launch a course, because see, both of these are very clarifying processes.
Yeah.
Right? On what you teach, what you train, how you word it, your messaging, your voice, how you educate people. All of these are things that are key to either A, launching an effective course, or B, launching an effective book. And so I've had people say, well, you have to write the book first. And then I've had other people say, well, you have to do the course first. And I've kind of learned that it can be either or. Now, obviously, I prefer to do the book first. But I've worked with many people who have done the courses, and they've already done a lot of the legwork that preps them to do the course. But the reverse is true. Many people who have done books then have done the legwork to be able to do the course. So I don't think it's an either or situation. I think it's just more, you know, where you're at in your business, what is the best way forward for you. But, you know, now by doing this, to be honest, Dean, it's not going to take you long to do your book. Right. You could, you know, we're recording this in March. You could have your book out early next year at the latest.
Yeah.
Because you've done the legwork.
Yeah, that's exciting. And for me, there was a step before, right? After consulting for 19 years, being a fractional for over a decade, I had a lot of stuff in my head that I wanted to get out. And it was like, all right, does it go into the book? Does it go into the course? And for me, it was easy to chunk it into the course and then move into the book. So that process made sense for me. And I guess for me, I wanted to get engaged with people, start helping people in this course. And then the book will follow as a secondary thing. So
I think that's awesome. Dean, we have just enough time for you to give a final thought. And for those who have really enjoyed this conversation today, how can they connect with you?
Thank you. Yeah. My final thought is, when it comes to having high ticket sales conversations, go back to those insightful questions, which hopefully comes from your typical discovery and onboarding with the client. So go do that. That's a how. Go do that. As far as finding me, the easiest place is just go to LinkedIn. Dean Isaacs on LinkedIn. You'll see me everywhere. I post a lot of content. Connect with me. Say hi. Say you found me through Kim's podcast. That'd be awesome. I'm doing more webinars this month as well, so feel free to jump on those, and hopefully you'll pick up some ideas as well. So LinkedIn's the easiest way to find me.
Well, thank you so much, Dean. And we'll have to make sure that we get your LinkedIn URL so that we can put that in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming today and sharing so freely from the heart of your knowledge and your value. Audience, if you're still listening at this point, which I hope you are, I have another amazing episode for you, episode 366, How to Shorten the High Ticket Sales Cycle with Craig Andrews. He was actually the specialist that I was talking about that I worked with last year, and I met him through the podcast. If you are on YouTube, you know the routine. My daughter has placed the thumbnails somewhere here on the screen for you to click. And if you are on your podcast app, you're either going to have to use the search function, or you're going to have to be scanning back, because you're going to be scanning back about 100, probably in 30 so episodes. So this was a while ago, but I promise you it's another amazing episode that's going to help you to be able to sell your high ticket products and services. Thank you so much for listening today, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.
You've been listening to the Author to Authority podcast. The extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson Pinder, has helped over 200 entrepreneurs, professionals, speakers, and coaches write and publish their books that have become incredible marketing tools for their business. And many of those have gone on to become Amazon best-selling authors and have used their books to land high-level clients and get on big stages. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at www.authortoauthoritypodcast.com. See you next time.